It's another episode of the Pace and Space podcast. I'm Sam Oshtry alongside Sean Bernard. We got a great show on a Thursday today for you. A lot of NBA topics, some games we're going to go over, some trade rumors, some Rich Paul discussion. You didn't think that was going to pop up on a random January and Thursday, but we're kind of in the dog days of the NBA season, and it's that time of year. How we doing, Sean?
Doing well, Sam Oshtry. That we are cruising through the NBA season now. We got some takes to get off the chest here. Not the highest of circumstance from the Sixers' perspective, as they got pretty much dogged by the Cavaliers for the second time this season. We are going to touch on that a little bit. Can't believe that Rich Paul is becoming a mainstream character in the NBA media world, which is seemingly happening. We'll dive into that as well. And a role player draft that we got to get off our chest. So very excited for that. I got my squad prepped. I got 15 names that made the cut for my qualifications there. So ready to dive into it all.
15 names. We said we're going to do 5 each. So you're cutting that down to 5, right?
Yeah, I'll trim it down, but
Right.
I'm gonna match your team here, Sam Osher. I plan on this role player squad getting the dub.
It won't, but we'll get to that at the very end of the show. And that's exciting that we're going to do a role player draft. But like I said, it's a dog days of the NBA season. It's that time of year when you see a lot of weird results. Trade deadline sneaking up only 2 weeks away. Seems like it's coming sooner than you would have expected. And then the All-Star weekend is a couple weeks after that. So this next month of the year, you see a lot of weird results. I don't know if you take too much stock into much of them, but we're still going to talk about the game, still go through it. And before we get to the Sixers game, where the Sixers got killed last night against the Cavs, we're going to start with some Jonathan Kuminga news. So Jonathan Kuminga, the Warriors forward, who's completely fallen out of the rotation, doesn't even play for them anymore. He's demanding
faking an injury for a stretch.
But that's the Warriors wanting him to fake an injury too, so he kind of increases his trade value a little bit, or at least doesn't decrease it. But he has demanded, not requested, demanded a trade from the Warriors, which was an inevitable outcome based on how the last couple of years have gone, based on how this contract that they signed when he was a restricted free agent this past summer. So what is the market that you think the Jonathan Kuminga can command, and can the Warriors get much back from it all?
No, not at all is my short answer to that. And I like Jonathan Kuminga overall. Like, I was pretty high on him coming out of the draft. I still can squint and see the vision of what he can be as a basketball player. I think it is a pretty neutral take to assess that, like, landing with the Golden State Warriors was the worst case scenario for his career from like a system standpoint. That, say what you want about the Warriors, they've obviously had a ton of success as an organization, but they're very particular in what your role is, what the skill set it requires, and what the expectations are for you within the flow of the offense. None of those things are how Jonathan Kuminga plays. That he is a guy that needs to, freestyle a little bit, get out in transition, rely on his athleticism, and he can't really allow those things to shine. I do think the Warriors deserve some significant blame for how they've handled this entire situation. I do think that they've sort of lost the plot with trying to maximize what our return can be versus what is best for your franchise and what is best for this player. And I understand that you're not acting in Jonathan Kuminga's best interest, but I think they've kind of handcuffed this guy in a way that has seriously derailed his NBA career. And I don't see a way that they can come out on top by winning this. So I don't see a massive return. I think this is going to be, I'm not going to say like the Trae Young situation, but like I do see some parallels there. I think you're going to end up selling for pretty much pennies on the dollars, and they still should.
Jonathan Kuminga has just never been the player the Warriors wanted and hoped he would be. He's a really inefficient player in a really efficient offense. You talk about offensive efficiency, like that Warriors teams that were shooting a ton of threes in the mid 2010s when they started their dynasty, really. Like they were the revolution, and everyone talks about Steph Curry as the 3-point revolution and the new age offense, how it's all based on efficiency and all this. But that was really the Warriors. Like that's what Steve Kerr built his system on efficiency. And Jonathan Kuminga is not an efficient player. He takes a ton of contested twos. He's not a good enough 3-point shooter. He's a really good straight line driver, but doesn't do it enough, honestly. He's not the passer or playmaker you want him to be. And he doesn't defend. Like you got to be able to defend to play for Steve Kerr, and he doesn't defend. So he's just not a Steve Kerr Warriors type of player, but the talent's there. And that's why I've always been a Jonathan Kuminga fan. When you think about his straight line driving, his athleticism, and you just think about the last year's playoffs against the Wolves, he was the Warriors' leading scorer, and he played a lot because Steph and Jimmy suffered some injuries, but he was the Warriors' leading scorer, and he's capable of having these 30, 35-point outings. But when he's paired with Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, non-shooter, not really a floor spacer, even though he can do some spacing with his cutting and screening and all that. And then Draymond Green, another non-shooter. You can't have a third non-shooter on the floor in Jonathan Kuminga. And that's really what this boiled down to for me. And I think the Warriors, where he never developed into the 3-point shooter that the Warriors hoped he would. and he was just too inefficient of a player, and he didn't play defense. So between those three things, the Warriors were kind of just done with him, and he was done with the Warriors because he fell out of Steve Kerr's rotation. They never had a great relationship. So this was always an inevitable outcome, but now it's what can the Warriors get back for him to try to elevate their championship ceiling? And who really wants Jonathan Kuminga? Did you go to the trade machine? Do you have any suitors in mind?
I honestly don't a ton in this one as far as like a specific deal. I'll say this, like for Kuminga, you can say like they hoped he would develop as a shooter. You obviously hope that stuff for all the players that you draft. This was never a guy that I looked at as like he could be, the heir to the throne of Golden State. Like he's a slasher. Even like watching his G League Ignite tape again, I liked him coming out of when he was entering the draft for that. I never viewed him as like a fit for what the Warriors ask players to do. And if anything, he's a little bit closer to like, when you ask like the screen and roll type, the Draymond type archetype of player, more so than anything like that. I think
Except he doesn't play any defense. He's Draymond, but he doesn't play any defense.
Sure. I guess my point being here, like I think it centers back to it was a poor decision to draft this guy. The talent is absolutely there, but it was never a fit for what you're asking him to do. And I do think that they've lost the plot with trying to maximize what the asset is versus how can you actually maximize their team. And I don't see a world where any sort of trade results in them like increasing their ceiling as a team. I think a team like the Kings could take a chance on him. They've been linked to him very heavily. Like they're a team that is like basically, taking a shot in the dark and can afford to take the risk. But I just don't see the Warriors winning this whatsoever. But I do think you got to cut ties completely.
If he goes to the Kings or one of these other lowly franchises, he's a guy who will average like 20 to 25 points a game. That doesn't mean it's going to lead to any team success or anything, but that's a team I think would take a chance on him. I've heard the Mavericks linked to him. I don't love that for the Mavericks, but he is a guy you can build on. And he's going to be a free agent. So like if you're taking him on, you're planning on offering him some type of an extension. And there will be a market for him. As much as people like have kind of hated on him because he wasn't a fit with the Warriors, there will be a market for Jonathan Kuminga. The Nets is a really interesting team that I've heard.
I like that.
And the only thing the Warriors would get back from the Nets is Michael Porter Jr. But if you're the Nets, number one, you would have to demand you wouldn't do that straight up. Michael Porter Jr. is a much valuable player. You'd rather have Michael Porter Jr. build with your franchise, or even you can get more back. So if you are the Nets, you would have to get back Brandon Podziemski, probably one of those first-round picks that the Warriors have, which are going to be pretty valuable because they're probably not going to be great for the next few years, especially in the post-Steph Curry era. So I don't know if the Warriors are willing to do that for Michael Porter Jr. Does that make you a top 4 team in the West? Probably not. So I think it's going to end up being a dump when you're not getting much back, like maybe a role player type archetype that you're going to get back in some trade for him. You're not going to get back a needle mover for Jonathan Kuminga at this point, even if you attach something like a Podziemski, like a pick to Kuminga.
And the hard part about like this entire Warriors conversation, like they won 4 championships, man. Steph Curry is going to go down as one of the best basketball players ever. This era has been wildly successful beyond what even like a fair margin is. But what do you do now? Like there's no real pathway. I see no player that they're missing that elevates them to contending with teams like the Thunder and Spurs and Rockets and Nuggets, the real top of the Western Conference. But at the same time, you do have to do right by Steph Curry, that he does still have his fastball. He is still one of the best players in the league, still playing at an incredibly high level. And there is like, I guess like a integrity in that of allowing this guy to like, play out his last years in the proper way, finish his entire career with the same franchise right there. At the same time, though, you are looking at a pretty bleak future. I do think it would be a mistake if Golden State tries to go all in and raise the ceiling once again. They kind of did that with Jimmy last year, but at the same time, that was like a buy low situation that I do think was the right call. But the Jimmy Butler addition was the closing of the window of Jonathan Kuminga having any sort of role on this immediate team. I don't really know what you do. I think you trade him, you free him if you get some sort of draft capital and begin to make your future a little brighter. But I think trying to package this or, phrase this or look at this as like a improve your outlook right now would probably be the wrong way to think about it from the Warriors' perspective.
Because he signed with the Warriors this past summer, today, January 15th, was the official day. He's eligible to be traded, which is why he demanded and made that clear. His agents made that clear to Shams. He demanded the trade the second he could. And that's why this is a relevant discussion today. The guy who I've wanted the Warriors to get, really the only guy I could see somewhat available being a ceiling raiser for them, is Lauri Markkanen, and I think he would be awesome alongside Steph as a movement shooter, and he could certainly flow with the Draymond and Jimmy Butler type, and he's like a big wing that they kind of need, even though defense can be iffy there. which is honestly being generous towards him. But defense can definitely be iffy there with him. But I would love to see him pair. But it seems like the Jazz are holding out on the Lauri Markkanen thing and wanting him to be part of their rebuild as they draft and develop some of these young guys. But all right, let's table the Jonathan Kuminga stuff, and we're gonna get to some games from last night. Gonna hit on the Sixers, Cavs, gonna hit on what's going on with the Knicks, some Nuggets stuff. But there's one more at-large topic we have to hit on.
Sure.
And that's Rich Paul. And Rich Paul has been in the news because of this new podcast he started called Game Over. Him and Max Kellerman. Max Kellerman, one of my favorite guys in all the sports media, by the way. He's awesome. But the podcast is making headlines because he said on the podcast he proposed a trade to send Austin Reeves out of Los Angeles for them to get back Jaren Jackson Jr. Why is that a big deal? It's because Rich Paul is one of the needle movers of the NBA. He's one of the most powerful brokers in the league.
The most powerful,
probably, yeah. And for him to suggest players being traded on a team that his most famous client, LeBron James, plays for, has ruffled a lot of feathers. And if you're the Lakers, you hate this podcast, but I don't know who hates it more, the Lakers or Austin Reeves' agents and other agents around the league who he's trying to diminish the value of some of their clients. So Austin Reeves' agent actually people say the word confronted like it was some malicious thing, but they had a conversation courtside at the Lakers game other night. And it's just one of these things where it's like people are going to be starting getting pissed at Rich Paul. And how does that affect his clients, his relationship with teams, his potential future clients? There's a lot of potential dominoes with this Rich Paul situation. But what was your reaction to all that?
I love Austin Reeves' agent, like I don't want to say getting in his face, because I do agree that there's been too much made about this than anything, but sticking up for your guy a little bit, making sure like, dude, what's going on here? Like checking in on Rich Paul, I guess I would say. It's one thing for you and I, Sam Oshtry, to throw out mock trades and, talk through what could make sense. It's another thing when a guy is actively these players' agent, like LeBron James. And if I'm like LeBron, and to LeBron's credit in this specific case, he made it a pretty clear point to like distance himself from Rich Paul, that he talked about how Rich is his own man. I'm my own man. Like he's going to have his thoughts. He didn't clear any of that with me or whatever the case. And I also don't think it makes any sense for the Lakers. Like I don't think Jaren Jackson Jr. is a guy that makes
zero sense.
Yeah, like I don't agree. Another takeaway from this podcast, I think Rich Paul would be a pretty bad GM if he was running an actual team. So I don't understand why Rich is doing this. He's wildly successful in the lane that he runs in. As I said, I do think he's the most powerful man in the NBA because he does pull a ton of strings. I've never been particularly a Rich Paul fan, that I do think that he feels himself. He knows he's very good at what he does, and he's not afraid to let people do that. And I do think like my critique of him, to give a specific example of here, when he was Ben Simmons' agent, and he also was Tyrese Maxey's agent, and there was the Ben Simmons holdout situation of he's demanding a trade from Philadelphia. Rich Paul specifically, and Clutch Sports is the whole umbrella term of who did this, canceled Tyrese Maxey's charity events in Philadelphia. That is a fact. That is exactly what happened, at the expense of we're getting Ben Simmons out of there. And to me, that was so backwards on the fact of you work for Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey does not work for you. You cannot leverage, which at the time was like a smaller scale client, for what was one of your big ticket clients, which was Ben Simmons. And obviously those kind of hierarchies have twisted quite a bit since that stage, but that very much rubbed me the wrong way. And I think that is like an example of why Rich Paul kind of doesn't look at this the way that I would prefer an agent do that. I don't understand why he's getting into these media waters. I do think it is going to be more trouble than it's worth. I love that Reeves' agent stuck up with it. And in the end, I do think this is a whole bunch of nothing in the larger conversation.
That's a great anecdote by you, because I forgot about that completely. But yeah, that was floating out there at the time, all these years back, when you're right, Maxey wasn't who he is now as a player. But let's go back to, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe even less than that, 7 years ago, when a lot of these player podcasts were starting, right? And these player podcasts were starting, and the concern was, if people forget, there was concern at the time. It was like, how are these guys going to talk about the teams they play for and the teams they're on and the guys they're competing against? They're not, if they say what really is on their mind, they're going to ruffle feathers, won't be good for the locker room, all this stuff. These were concerns that people were saying, like they are about Rich Paul's podcast now. They were saying it for players back when they were starting their player podcasts. And what ended up happening, every player, certainly a star, has a podcast now and started one, and it didn't really have that impact at all. Why? Because the players don't really say anything on these podcasts.
Yeah.
And that's why they're really boring and not really insightful. The really good player podcasts are the former players, when those guys tell all their stories and air everything out and aren't scared to say anything. And those are the great podcasts, like the Jeff Teagues of the world. But the ones now aren't great. I say all that to say that this is now the new age where it's not the player podcast anymore. It's the agent podcast. And that's when those player podcasts started all these years ago. It was like, all right, the players are getting back the power. The players are starting these to control the narrative. They don't want the media and everyone else to control the narrative anymore. This is now what Rich Paul's doing. He's a really smart guy, and he's saying, sure, all these people have been controlling the narrative. This media entity has been controlling the narrative for me. I can start my own podcast with Max Kellerman, a giant media figure, former ESPNer, at The Ringer, a huge media company, and I can now control the narrative as an agent. Here's where that's problematic. Number one, Rich Paul does speak his mind. So he's not like, if I was Rich Paul's people, I would say, all right, do your podcast. It can be popular with Max Kellerman. Don't talk about your clients or specific instances that involve your clients. Stay away from that. Just talk about the league as a whole. Talk about football, whatever. Give your basketball analysis takes. But that's different than putting certain guys in trade stuff. But again, here's where this is problematic. For Rich Paul to say that he wants Austin Reeves traded, what a lot of people haven't caught on and don't understand is that if Austin Reeves is not on this team next year, that clears the way for LeBron James, Rich Paul's client, to get paid. Austin Reeves is going to be a free agent next summer. He is going to get a max contract, whether it's on the Lakers or somewhere else. You think the Lakers are going to offer it, but if the Lakers do offer him a max contract, they can't pay LeBron James what LeBron James wants to be paid at the very least, which is some type of huge deal. If LeBron comes back to Lakers next year, which I'm skeptical will even happen, it'll be on a massive discount. So Lakers just can't afford him. If Austin Reeves is off this team and they trade him away like Rich Paul did in his fantasy basketball trade, that clears the way for LeBron James, his client, to get paid next offseason. So it's a lot like Rich Paul's not stupid. He's a very smart guy. He knows what he's doing. It's a lot of backdoor channeling. It's really channeling through the public, but mischievously, because most people haven't caught on to that except real diehard NBA fans or Laker fans or people who are around the league. But that's what this was to me. That was him saying, and he can deny it all he wants, but that was him saying, let's get Austin Reeves off this team to open up this door for LeBron James, my client, to get paid. And that's scummy. It's just scummy. And that's why other agents have been pissed about it.
And that's the Rich Paul sort of story to me, Sam Oshtry, is it's never like this upfront, like, he does anything that's wildly offensive or wildly across the line. It's always the example I just gave. I guarantee that there is like fewer like diehard NBA fans. There's probably fewer than like 10% of people that even recognize that it's a problem or remember that happened. That sticks in my brain because I was supposed to go to one of these Maxi charity events that got washed, and I kind of was able to connect the dots of how exactly things went down there. But this is how Rich Paul moves, man. And like it's such being an agent in particular is such a relationship business that like if I'm his client, I would hate that he's doing this. Anthony Davis is another clear example of he's trying desperately to get Anthony Davis moved from the Dallas Mavericks. And if you're the Mavericks, why are you doing that at this point? You made the bed. You traded for Anthony Davis. He just, hurt his hand again, is out for several months. There's no point for trading him what is already pennies on the dollar. And I love that you highlight this because shout out to our guy, Rocky.
Great comment.
Yeah. Our guy, Rocky the Birds fan. He's good for one comment a pod that just makes me crack up. This one was a loyal
one. Shout out.
Yeah, saying Rich Paul going to play Rondo in a Lakers movie in 10 years. That is spot on. That is exactly what he looks like right now.
But let me just say too, to the Rich Paul point, an unintended consequence of this could be that forget his star clients, and obviously he has so many relationships and he runs the NBA for a lot of teams. But what about his lower tier clients? If you're a team and you're saying signing this guy, part of signing him is now bringing on his agent and his agent's podcast, who, if things aren't going well, could spill our beans. He might try to create distractions, not purposefully, but he might create distractions that during trade season that would undermine our organization. So now if you have to have that as a consideration if you're one of these teams. And you're going, all right, not the stars. I'm talking about the role player type contracts, like a Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who I believe he reps, like such as someone like that, a name to throw out there. That's a consideration now. So could that hurt Rich Paul's bottom line, his business, which is the most important thing to him, his agency business, even though he's doing all these other ventures like podcasting, media, all these things. But that's the bread and butter, the agency stuff. If this starts hurting his bottom line, then there's all the unintended consequences where who knows how long this lasts. But it's just been an interesting storyline in the NBA right now, really, because it's the middle of January and that's what you talk about
Yeah.
this time of year. But it's something that's made a lot of headlines.
Yeah, for sure there. And I guess to answer your specific question there, I don't think it changes that much from the way that it's always been. Like there's always been, I don't want to say baggage, but a little bit more that comes with interacting with the Rich Paul, a little bit more leverage that when you're doing business with Clutch Sports and with this entire corporation and everything that comes with it, that once again is wildly successful. Like I don't mean for this to be a direct insult at the organization as a whole because they get the job done. At the end of the day, they have their clients' best interest far more than NBA teams, and that's exactly what he and they are doing in this specific case. To the point about like why, I think at the end of the day it comes down to power, man. Like Rich Paul can have all the money in the world. He's been for the large scale a guy that works in the background. Like it takes being like a diehard NBA fan to know who Rich Paul is. That I do think there's a little bit of it.
Does it?
I mean, he more so than most agents ever. There's no doubt about it. But
he's
like
the most famous agent in any sport, I think, right? Like who
Scott
are the
Boras.
most
Scott Boras,
okay,
I would say.
Scott Boras is a good one, but like you got to be an MLB, you got to know baseball. Like let's NFL, NBA, like Drew Rosenhaus is the most famous NFL guy. But like,
I would give Rich Paul the nod there.
Yeah, I would too. I'm saying like people don't know agents usually, but
like,
I
think that's
everybody knows Rich Paul.
I think that's sort of why he's interested in doing this. Is like I think there is an itch to I want to be a little bit more of a celebrity. I want to be. Everyone knows LeBron James. Everyone knows Luka Doncic. Everyone knows like the forward-facing NBA players. I'm the one who gets the job done for these guys. Let me get a little bit of love. I think that's why Rich Paul looks at this and why this is being done. I do think from like a pure business perspective, it's probably a mistake to be talking about all this stuff out in the open the way that he does. And to your like initial point here, I'm kind of shocked for how open that he has been on these podcasts. Like this has not been a pull punches type of deal. Like he's putting his business out there. We'll see what the chips do overall fall because of that.
Did you lose me?
No, did you lose me there? I finished.
I guess I did for a second, but we're back. So okay. Yeah, just put a bow on the Rich Paul conversation. To me, it's about controlling the narrative. And we saw it with the players. That's why they started their podcast. I don't know if agent podcasts are going to be a trend, but it is something that Rich Paul is diving into. And I think it's all to control the narrative. And we'll see how it plays out, though. He's obviously got criticism from other agents, certainly from the Lakers organization. So we'll see if maybe he scales back on, you can still talk ball, but not maybe throw out some of these hypotheticals and talk about the granulars of your clients and your clients' teams and stuff like that. So we'll see if he scales back.
I think it's likely like within the next couple months, the entire plug is pulled on this operation. I don't see
who's pulling the plug because Max and the Ringer, they're loving it.
No, Rich Paul will be the guy that pulls the plug. Would be my guess.
That's interesting. I think we'll make it through the season.
And by the way, Max Kellerman can do this with anyone. Like Max Kellerman is a pro at this. He moves the needle in his own right. This is purely if Rich Paul wants to keep doing this, and I think there will be a point where the juice is not worth the squeeze from his individual interests.
Maybe, but I think this is also the time of year, like this time right before trade season, and around July, obviously right before free agency, and I guess the draft too. This is when it's like, all right, all these rumors, everything he says is going to be taken with a microscope.
Yeah.
If it's like after the trade deadline, he's kind of just talking basketball, right? And he can go give good insight because he knows more about what's going on in the NBA than anybody else. But he's not really throwing people in trade stuff. So we'll see how it plays out. It might die down a little bit, but it's just the storyline going on throughout the NBA right now. But all right, let's talk about the Maxwell games.
One more Rich Paul clip for me. Like a clip that pops to mind was right before draft time with Kamin Maluak, who I really like coming out of Duke. Big man who has not played a ton this year. He's been pretty limited in his opportunity. They traded for Mark Williams like 10 seconds after drafting him, but I might even been like right before. But nonetheless,
you thought he was gonna be a better player than Derek Queen, but we'll have that conversation another day.
In the long run, we can still revisit that. But I
would gladly do that.
in the long haul, or the conversation that rubbed me the wrong way about Rich Paul, which by the way, I have no clue how this clip circulated, but it was a phone call between Rich Paul and Matt Ishbia, the owner of the Suns, who obviously drafted Maluak. And they're asking, Rich Paul's calling him. He's saying, who are you interested at that 10th pick for your number one choice? And he's like, we're thinking through a couple guys. And he's like, I'm going to throw you a couple names. You tell me how interested you are in this guy. And the first one he says is Kamin Maluak. And Ishbia replies, to be honest with you, that probably would be our first choice. And then Rich Paul says, let me see if I can get him there, and hangs up the phone. That is insane to me. Like, that is not how this should work.
Well, if you remember during the Bronny thing too, there was other teams who were
Yeah.
contemplating drafting Bronny, and he
I would
told
have done
them
it, by the way. If I'm the Sacramento Kings, why not? Take him. Why
he's
not?
not a good prospect. What you're just
Yeah,
doing
but
is
you
messing with
have
the
this
Lakers.
card now. You have this card to play against clutch
What's the
sports.
cord? You're gonna get LeBron to Sacramento? That ain't happening.
I don't know if it's not. I think there's a higher there's somewhat of a chance of that.
No, maybe for like the Warriors, sure, like a team who would be a legitimate destination for LeBron. Not Sacramento. No. But I will say, like, he was the guy who was calling other teams saying, "Do not draft Bronny James."
Which
Obviously,
is
draft
wrong.
Bronny James
Which is
because
wrong.
he wanted him to go to the Lakers. But yeah, I mean, that's what he did. Like, wrong, right? I don't know if it's wrong, right? I'm not the one to say.
I think that's wrong.
It's just how it works, though. Like, there's no rules saying he can't do that. Like, if he wants to have that much control over franchises or the league as a whole, more power to him. As long as he can get away with it.
But the rules of the draft are when you're on the clock, you pick whatever player you want on your franchise. That you have full choice right now. That is not.
Well, what do you mean? There's no rules of the draft. You can do whatever you want in his organization. If you want to make a back channel deal, let me tell you. Let me say to this agent, I'll draft your player, or I'll sign him to a two-way, but you gotta give me the first meeting with your other client. Like that back channel deal happens all the time. That's just the nature of the business.
You're right, and to be fair to Rich, like he's not the only one doing this. There's no doubt about it. Like this is what the game's become. But I do think he's the most clear example of it, and the guy that has pushed the envelope in a direction that it's gotten to this point is all I'll say there.
All right, let's keep it moving. We went long on Jonathan Kuminga and Rich Paul, but again, it's January 15th.
Yeah.
But I don't want to talk about this game too much because they are playing again tomorrow night. But the Cavs just whooped the Sixers last night. Wasn't really competitive at all. The Cavs just looked like the more motivated team. They gave more effort. They were trying harder. I'm not going to take any brand takeaways. I think tomorrow night will be an interesting one. You would expect the effort and intensity to be better. And then I would take some takeaways away from this matchup we can talk about next week. But did you have anything on this game?
Yeah, I think this was the third time all season I can think where I watched the Sixers and said, they don't have it tonight. The effort level's not there. The energy's not there. I thought the Cavaliers absolutely dominated them on the boards early on. They were out rebounding them by 10 after the first quarter, and honestly, it felt like a lot more than that when watching it live. Maxey, the shot was not falling last night, and that's been a very rare sight for that to be the case this season. We'll see how things do shake out. I'm not putting a ton of stock in that specific game. The Cavaliers sort of wanted that one and needed that one more than the Sixers did. They were coming off a loss to the Jazz, so I think they had a little bit more motivation in them. So not a ton of takeaways from that other than the fact of we'll see what happens Friday.
Yeah, but tomorrow night's a big one because you want to see it. This is like, even though they're still the 7th seed, they're climbing up the standings. They've been much better over the last month than they were the first couple months of the season. And this is one of the better, more talented, at the very least, teams in the East. And so you want to see how you stack up against them. But Darius Garland's probably going to be out. And I guess I just feel bad for him at this point because he can never stay healthy. And the Cavs as a whole are never going to reach their potential without a healthy Darius Garland. He started out the year injured, came back, was awful the first few games. His efficiency, his scoring was down. He wasn't moving right at target defensively, which he's been most of his career. And then he started making shots, and he was playing much better over the last few weeks or so. And now he's injured again. I don't think I saw anything about the timeline unless you did, but
he
said
it's
a right foot injury, but I don't think anything in stone.
Yeah. All that I've seen put out there is Kenny Atkinson said at the presser last night is I'm going to list him as doubtful for Friday. We don't really know much beyond that. And I'm seeing the comments. Shout out to our guy, Rocky DeBert's fan again. Barlow better be okay. He's listed as questionable tomorrow, which I think is like by far the best case scenario because that did look ugly when he went down. Really awkwardly hurt his back. That he's become a huge part of the Sixers team. So glad that they seem to avoid a long-term injury for that. But yeah, I am with your overall point of I'm sympathetic to Darius Garland. I really like him as a player. He's struggled to find his stride for now, like a couple seasons now. I thought like this dude was on the pathway to being like a pretty much perennial all-star. I do hope he can refine that groove, and injuries are really the only part of the conversation there.
One note I did have from last night is they're a really great scoring backcourt, Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. But there are a lot of times, and you saw the Sixers do that in the third quarter when they made a little bit of a run, where the Sixers increased their pickup point. They had a higher pickup point, and they were putting a lot of ball pressure on those guards because they're a small backcourt, and that's why defensively they're not a great backcourt, and why they've struggled in the playoffs. And so I thought that increased ball pressure on those two guys was really big in the third quarter when they went on a little bit of a run. Then they backed off a little bit, and Donovan Mitchell was just awesome last night. I mean, he was just hitting everything, and he had complete control of that game. He was the best player on the floor from start to finish. But that's something I want to see more of tomorrow. Even even though it's going to be a different starting backcourt with Darius Garland out.
Yeah, I guess 3 quick points on it. Number 1, Joel Embiid diving in the crowd, man. Like, I appreciate it. I do not need to see it pretty much ever. Certainly not
But
right now.
it's a good sign that he has confidence in his body to even think about doing that.
Absolutely. And he's definitely moving like a night and day different player than was the case at the start of the season. I would prefer you not do that pretty much ever from this point of your career forward, though, Joel. I love the effort, love the energy, appreciate that he did do that, and thankful that he's okay. But the risk-reward situation, probably not exactly where I'm in alignment with him there. Number 2, you nailed it. Donovan Mitchell, he's incredible, man. And I don't think this guy gets enough love for where he does truly belong in the hierarchy of the NBA. That this guy, like, he was frying the Sixers last night. We're talking sham gods, in and out dribbles, just going down the lane. That little up and over move that he does have, he absolutely got away with a ton of carries, which was bothering me a little bit, but that's the entire NBA at this stage. So I can't really make that a Donovan Mitchell thing. And the third point that I do want to bring up about the Cavs specifically, Evan Mobley was excellent last night, man. He was dominant on both ends of the floor. Why is that the outlier? Why is that only once in a while I see that version of Evan Mobley? And you and I had a pretty heated Evan Mobley discussion a couple weeks, maybe even months ago at this point, about where
before the year when we did our rankings.
Before the year even started. I believe you had him as a top 15 NBA player, if my memory is correct in that.
That's correct.
That's crazy.
And I don't even have him an all-star this year.
Yeah, like that was crazy at the time. It's still crazy. But my point would still be, why can he not do that every single night? Because he can. He's capable, and he does not do it at a regular enough rate to be the high-impact player that he should be. Evan Mobley frustrates me a ton. Last night was an example of whenever I see him play this well, I don't understand why he can't replicate this.
Yeah, it's fair. It's the consistent. I mean, defensively, he's always consistent.
Sure.
It's offensively, his aggressiveness. Yeah. Like sometimes he's out there looking like a playmaker, catching the pocket passes, operating the short roll, and he's great and is driving to the rim. And other times he just looks really passive. And it's like him and Donovan Mitchell pick and roll should be lethal. It should be at the level of Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid, where it's really like, pick your poison with those two guys. You're going to come to the level. You're going to be in drop. One of those two guys is going to exploit that coverage no matter what. That's what this pick and roll combo should be. But Evan Mobley is not the force that Embiid is down low, and he doesn't have that mid-range game we can catch in the pocket and just rise for that 15 to 18 footer. But he can catch and drive, and sometimes the aggressiveness just isn't there. He's kind of uncertain of himself sometimes. But last night, he looked good, and he looked pretty aggressive. And so, yeah, we'll see what happens tomorrow night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100% there. Go ahead. You want to transition, talk some about your New York Knicks right here?
Well, I think we have 2 more topics before we hit the role player draft, which is really our all-NBA role player team. First topic is the Knicks.
Yeah.
Who you can take not a victory lap because there's a long way to go in the season, but you can smile a little bit because they're 2-6 in the last 8. They're still in second place in the East, a half a game ahead of the Celtics
for now,
but they've struggled this month. And I have my reasons that I'll lay out for what they are, how concerned Knicks fans should really be. But what do you have to say first?
So I guess I'll start off by saying I'm obviously, on the outside looking in. I know, Sam Oshtry, you're the guy on the New York Knicks message boards and fan groups and all those things.
Have message boards for NBA teams. That's a college thing.
Fair.
Reddit threads, I guess.
But I'll just say my sense of things is they've hit the low point of the Karl Anthony Towns experience, that the frustrations are at the peak. And I think the play that certainly sums it up that we saw last night was Karl Anthony Towns going down on a play and basically staying down on the other side of the floor for the entirety of a possession, in which it ended up an offensive rebound. The Knicks played a whole 5-on-4 possession, and I'm seeing all the tweets fly off. Where you and I have never seen eye to eye about this Karl Anthony Towns conversation is even dating back to the trade that I talked about. Like, if you put in a vacuum Dante DiVincenzo and Karl Anthony Towns, for who do I want to go to postseason war with? My answer is 10 out of 10 is Dante DiVincenzo. That's a guy that competes in a level that
it's not a fair question, in a vacuum. Like, the context around the matters. Karl Anthony Towns is way more talented.
Absolutely.
So it's like, yeah, if you're talking about your 4th, 5th man on a team, Donovan Mitchell's really valuable. If you're talking about the second guy on the team, you're not winning with Donovan or Dante DiVincenzo as your second guy on the team. Excuse me.
But I don't know if you're winning at Karl Anthony Towns as your second guy.
Well, maybe, but you have a better chance.
I hear you. But where you and I have not seen eye to eye on this is whenever you package the Karl Anthony Towns conversations of he used to commit all these stupid fouls and used to be reckless. And I'm like, he still is, man. The flaws of him that have stuck since he came in the league about the aloofness to his play and the stupid decisions on the perimeter, the reckless fouls, they're all still there. This is not a changed guy. This is exactly who Karl Anthony Towns always has been. So I get the frustration from a Knicks fan perspective. This is sort of what I've expected and seen all along.
That's not really the Carl Towns problem for me, at least this year.
The
This year,
defense?
he's had to sacrifice a lot in the Mike Brown system. He's playing a role that he hasn't typically played, like a lot of dribble handoff guys, operating as a hub, sacrificing touches, sacrificing shots, all these things. And that's been frustrating, understandably so, but he's taken that frustration out in his play, and that's shown in his effort. Sometimes he's just like aloof on the court, where Carl Towns is such a talented player. You should never forget he's on the floor. And there's so many possessions he's not involved in, or he doesn't want to be involved in. So some of the touches is the system. Some of it is him being just kind of aloof and not being as active as an offensive player as you've seen in the past. And like the frustrations are obvious. And look, he complains to the refs way too much. A lot of players do. It's annoying, especially when the calls aren't what they should be. But yesterday, that play where that was all of his frustrations in one play, where he just fell, wasn't even fouled. He wasn't complaining to the ref because he knew it wasn't fouled. Just fell, didn't get back on defense. The Kings, I was forgetting who they played for a second. The Kings attempt a shot, miss the shot, get the offensive rebound, get another possession out of it, and Carl Towns still hasn't crossed half court. That was just, the effort was so awful, and Mike Brown called him out immediately. It was so obvious if you were watching, but the effort on that play just felt like all of his frustrations boiling down. It's just, there's no reason for him to not be a consistent 20 and 10 guy every single night. If you assert yourself the way you should, and you rebound the way you should, and you give effort defensively, you have limitations, but you give effort defensively, then there's no excuse for you not being a top 15 player in the league, which I've seen some people leave him off all-star ballots. And look, the numbers still say he should be the all-star in the East, but the regression has been so obvious, and the shooting numbers are even worse too, where it's just been a bad year for Carl Towns, but he can't let that frustration get to his head and affect his effort, which it is right now.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, when we did our All-Star last week here, like I did have him on there, but I don't think that's definitive. Like I understand the case that like you can argue with me that he doesn't deserve it. I'm not going to fight you too hard on it. But to your initial point here, that's maddening that we can even make that argument, because he should be talent-wise. He absolutely should command to be on that team, be one of the top players in the league, and that's not how it feels on a night-to-night basis. And I will say, what rubs me the wrong way is I feel like he overplays the sacrifice thing of like when he'll have a 6-point game and he steps to the media of like, well, I have to sacrifice for this. Yeah. He's not entirely wrong, but at the same point, like, dude, I just
it's true. It's true. It's true that he is sacrificing, and it's got to be hard for him. It's also true what you're saying, that stop complaining about it. Like this is what happens. You sacrifice to win sometimes. Last year wasn't good enough. It's the same starting five, at least. Last year wasn't good enough. You have to sacrifice to win, and you're sacrificing a play style for what I think is more egalitarian shared approach.
Yeah.
And I think that's for the betterment when they get to the playoffs. He has to leave that concern to the side, or at least not air out that concern publicly when you have bad games. But he has. Look, I'll say I'm not worried about the Knicks in the slightest with how this East shakes out. If you're a Knicks fan, and the Knicks were my pick to win the or make the Eastern Conference or make the championship and win the East this year. Here's why I'm not concerned. Number one, a lot of teams go through lulls in the middle of January. Like I said, a lot of weird results. You're coming off the NBA Cup win. The Spurs went through a 2-4 stretch after the NBA Cup. And I'm not saying the NBA Cup matters at all, but you do play an extra game. You're on the road a lot more. It's exhausting. So now the Knicks are one of these teams who need the All-Star break to come in the next month more than anybody. And so I'm not concerned about that. They'll come back from the All-Star break refreshed, rejuvenated. The other thing is, Josh Hart was out for a pretty decent stretch from Christmas up until earlier this week when he came back. They're 12-4 with Josh Hart in the lineup. He is the heart and soul of that team. No pun intended. He really is. Like the physicality they play with, their effort they play with, it's so much different when Josh Hart's on the floor. The third thing is the offense just hasn't been what we saw from the first 2 months of the season. Their passes are down per game in January compared to December and November. Their assists are down per game. They're scoring. They're averaging 108 points per game this month. In December and November, it was 122 points per game. They're going back to that like heliocentric style that was all like Brunson dribbling the ball a million times. And against physical defenses, and you saw that against a team like the Pistons, who are really physical with them, high pickup points, throw a lot of length at Jalen Brunson. That doesn't always work for the betterment of the offense. And I want them to go back to that shared approach where Brunson's off the ball early. He's playing more of a catch guy.
Yeah.
You're getting a lot of on-ball reps between the Miles McBrides and the Mikal Bridges of the world and those guys. And the defense has been awful. They're the 29th ranked defense this month. Again, the defense is never going to be good, but it needs to be average. I don't think it's going to be this bad. Their transition defense is really terrible. It's second worst in the league in terms of transition points allowed per game. It's just been a mess right now, but the talent is there in this East. I'm not worried still.
I'll make a little Sixers to Knicks comparison here, and the Knicks are a more magnified version of this. But Jared McCain is a guy that I've pounded the table for, that I'm a believe in as a talent. And the thing that appeals to me about Jared McCain's particular skill set is the way that he's able to make a pass, get off ball, get himself open, create a shot without having the ball in his hands. All those things look so great when it's all clicking. We're seeing the current version of Jared McCain, where he's not seeing that level of opportunity nor that level of success. In last night's game against the Cavaliers, and I'm going to cut off the garbage time at the end where he played some in the fourth quarter there. He played 4 minutes in the first half. He touched the ball one time, and he shot it right away, missed the shot right there. I don't really fault Jared McCain for that because you got to get it where you can right now, that he's trying really hard to insert himself, to prove that he's worthy of a role. But that specific decision was one that that can't happen, man. I don't need you shooting that shot. I don't need you forcing it to that level. Karl-Anthony Towns in a more magnified level, I sort of see the same process in his brain of I need to get a shot here. I need to take a man and that kind of thing. And it sort of is tearing apart the system that you have built entirely right here. It's great when people are sacrificing when everything is going well. It's a lot harder when they're not, when you're not seeing the results like that. Now, there is going to be absolutely the ride the waves. You're going to have your down points of the season. That's what the Knicks are currently in. They can 100% so right the ship, get back on track, and be a legitimate contender. But the version of them right now, they need to step in and fix things in the pretty short term because it does feel like the energy is just entirely off. And to your Josh Hart point, you're right. This dude is such a core part of this team. But I also kind of think there's sometimes an unfair expectation placed upon him specifically of he's a very good player, but he's not the fix-all. He's not that you throw him in and everything gets better. He connects a lot of things and makes it all work, but he's still a Josh Hart, a high-level role player type guy. They need him. He's an important part, but I think that's a little bit unfair to throw that expectation.
Yeah, but I think the physicality and the attitude, yes, offensively, yes, to carry a load like he was against the Sixers a couple years ago in that series and for that playoff run, Josh Hart can't carry that offensive load. And maybe even that was too much Josh Hart last year. But he's still what he brings from just an offensive rebounding perspective, from a defensively, toughness, physicality, all that stuff. It's unmatched. And you can see the entire Knicks energy is completely different when Josh Hart's on the floor. A couple small points. The defense is much better when Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson are paired together. There hasn't been, for whatever reason, Thibs was reluctant last year, and Mike Brown's done it more, but he's still been reluctant. That pairing, people just don't like for whatever reason. But defensively, there's no doubt that they've been better when those two guys are on the floor together. The second thing is when Karl-Anthony Towns was traded, I think myself and a lot of people were like, wow, this Brunson cat pick and roll, pick and pop is going to be incredible. And that just hasn't been the case. I think teams have done a really good job negating that pick and roll duo impact, partly because teams are putting, not always, but a lot of teams, especially in the playoffs, put a 4-man on Karl-Anthony Towns where you could switch that easily as opposed to a 5-man where you don't want Jalen Brunson to catch a 5 on a switch. So there's a lot of reasons for it, but it's kind of just been off, that pick and roll duo. It hasn't been what I think a lot of people expected it to be. And the last point is about Cat, to wrap this conversation up. Maybe there's something to the fact that the Timberwolves got off him and haven't missed a beat. I'm not saying Dante DiVincenzo isn't a better player, but the Timberwolves won that trade. Forget the salary stuff. For getting off him, they create a ton of room because he was getting a lot of money. Just they haven't missed a beat. Defensively, they've been phenomenal still. Edwards has made leaps and downs. Obviously, he was your superstar no matter what. But they went to the Western Conference Finals the year after they got Cat, and they're a top 3-4 team in the West. So there's something to be said about the fact that his value doesn't necessarily match his talent.
Yeah, I'm not going to call him an empty calories guy because he's not that. There's other examples of that, but it's you don't feel the Karl-Anthony Towns impact the way you probably should from that conversation point. And I don't really know what to fully make of that. I've watched him for years now, and I've kind of always felt this way, but haven't exactly to nail down my take of why that is right there. I also want to give a little bit of love to Julius Randle, man. Like, that dude was kind of thrown to the side by Knicks fans specifically.
Yeah,
I've heard.
I didn't even mention him. I was thinking Dante DiVincenzo. Yeah, he was obviously the major piece of that trade. Yeah, 100%.
To make that work. And Randall is a guy who I've always had some sympathy from a Knicks perspective because Jalen Brunson gets all the love for it. Julius Randle is the guy who started the pathway of this franchise really reviving himself with his all-star season and leading to the playoffs before that deal even went down. He's been great for this Timberwolves team, man. And like the way like his physicality, his strength, he's a throwback player. He's got his flaws as well. But I think Randall's a guy who does not get nearly enough love for who he is as a basketball player because he does have some loser energy and his style isn't for anyone. But Randall, I feel net positive to in a way that I think the NBA community is net negative to.
He's been great, Julius Randle, and Karl Towns a better player, but Julius Randle is probably a guy you'd rather have on your team, depending on your play style, of course. But you'd rather have Julius Randle on your team, and
you feel him more.
Just inherently flawed. Like, forget about the defensive stuff. We understand that he can't guard fives. He gets abused in the pick and roll when guys target him, especially in the playoffs. But offensively, there's some flaws there too. And as much as great of a shooter he is, best big shooter ever, self-proclaimed best big shooter ever, which he actually
quick time out on that. He just keeps saying that, and
but he might have a case. Honestly, he's that good of a 3-point shooter. He might have a case.
It's Dirk.
I don't know. I'd have to look at the numbers, but I'm not like 100%. It's Dirk. I think Karl Towns is a better catch and shoot 3-point shooter. Dirk gets create for himself more, so he didn't get as many opportunities.
Different times.
As the catch and shoot 3-point shooter, yeah, the spacing was completely different. But you could be right. It could be Dirk. But still, Karl Towns, unbelievable shooter. There's still just flaws to his game. Like you said, the pouting, the complaining. He's always on the floor. His drive, sometimes he shies away from contact, even though they're physical drives, but he's often like fading away and shying away from contact. So there's a lot of flaws where it's just like, if they don't win this, if the Knicks don't make the finals this year, Cat is going to be the guy that gets the blame. And there's going to be a lot of conversation. Like, can you win with this guy? And he's never been above a second option for a good team, like a really good team. But the conversations are going to start is like, if he's one of your top guys, can you win with him?
I've voiced my concerns of
we'll table them for the playoffs, but I'm just saying that's going to start coming up. All right, before we get to the role player draft, our last topic, we'll be quick on this, but the Nuggets are 6-3 since Jokic went down.
Damn right.
Pretty remarkable. A few of those games were without Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon and Christian Braun have returned since then. Jonas Valanciunas is still out. Peyton Watson has been incredible over this stretch. You have guys like Jalen Pickett, who was unbelievable. I was blanking on his name for a second. Who was unbelievable against Philly in that G League Nuggets game. What are your takeaways from this? I mean, I already know what it's going to be. I just want to avoid this topic. But what are your takeaways from this Nugget stretch where they're winning a lot of games without Jokic?
Yeah, the New York Knicks and the Denver Nuggets are my two favorite hate watches. And Sam Oshtry, the conversation that we need to have right here. Is Nikola Jokic a Patrick Ewing theory candidate? Is this team better without him on the floor? Because
explain Patrick Ewing theory to the people.
The Patrick Ewing theory being here that obviously his time with the New York Knicks and the caveat here that I have to throw out here is he never won a championship, and that's always been held against him. But what was always seen is the team sort of played better when he was not on the floor. And he was a guy who was very ball dominant, had it a lot. He needed to make things happen, and he was incredible. A Hall of Famer, there's no doubt about any of that. But when he was not there, the team looked excellent. What my eyes are telling me about the Denver Nuggets right there is all this conversation about the 3-time most valuable player, that Nikola Jokic, God's greatest gift to earth as a basketball player, that nobody's ever played like this. I'm watching a team be a high-level basketball team without him there that I don't want to hear about. He's never had any help, that his supporting cast is trash, because that is straight up untrue. Jamal Murray is elite. Jamal Murray, the real deal. Aaron Gordon, incredible. A guy like Peyton Watson, I will make the case right now, has been held back by Nikola Jokic, because give that man the rock and let him cook, and he can absolutely make it happen. They are 6-3 without Nikola Jokic. They are a playoff team without Nikola Jokic.
Are you done?
And we should.
I can't listen to it any longer.
Go ahead.
I can't listen to it any longer. It's ridiculous. The Patrick Ewing theory is that they were better without him on the floor.
Correct.
If your eyes are telling you that, they're completely lying to you. The Nuggets had been good without him on the floor. They're not better without Nikola Jokic on the floor. That is an asinine statement. I have the numbers to support it. They have a 12 net rating, meaning they outscore their opponents by 12 points per 100 possessions when Nikola Jokic is on the floor. That is a minus -5, around that, a little bit below, tick below -5. But -5 when Nikola Jokic is off the floor. That includes this stretch over the last 9
How
games
about just
he's
this
missed.
stretch? How about, do you have those numbers?
Well, he hasn't played this whole stretch, so we
That's
wouldn't
what
know
I
what he
those are
is.
the numbers I'm asking for.
Yeah, no, they're obviously a net positive,
Mhm.
just this stretch, but I guarantee you they're not a 12 net positive. So
But I
they would
think
still be worse
it's an
without.
apples to oranges comparison to compare the minutes where he's playing in and is off the floor compared to an entire game that you're playing without him.
That's fair point, but I could still guarantee you over this 9-game stretch, the Nuggets do not have a 12 net rating. They're not outscoring opponents by 12 points per 100 possessions. Look it up. I guarantee it's not 12. So regardless, they're a worse team when Jokic is off the floor. And you're saying, oh, you don't want to hear all this stuff about how he didn't have teammates and all that. It's been true in the past that his teammates have let him down. My takeaway is nothing to do with Jokic. It's that how good this team has been without Jokic, and they've benefited from some easy matchups too, for sure. But how good they've been without Jokic just shows how good this team actually is. And when you add the MVP of the league back, because they were better with Jokic, obviously, like it would be ridiculous to assert otherwise, but they're better with Jokic. But when you add the MVP of the league back, this team can beat the Thunder and win an NBA title. And this is proof that this is, which I said before the season, why I picked the Nuggets to win it all, that this is the best team Jokic has ever played with. And in fact, we know Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon and Christian Braun and all those guys, but now Peyton Watson has made an unbelievable leap. And guys like Spencer Jones are contributing at a really high level. So this team is on a whole nother level from the Nuggets team last year and the last couple of years. Even when they won the championship, this Nuggets team is better. In my mind, they just didn't face a Thunder team for that run. And we'll see, because that's going to be an incredible series when those two teams eventually meet. But it would be absurd to insinuate anything other than this is just a good team without Jokic, and they're playing good ball over the stretch.
I just want you to keep that same energy when Nikola Jokic is back on the floor.
Well, what was the stat? You find it?
Don't worry about it. We don't got to talk about it. No.
Like two net rating?
-0.8. They're 17th in the NBA across this stretch.
So they're losing points per 100 possessions. They're still winning. So they're not playing exceptional ball either. Yeah. Like they're winning some games. 6-3 is super impressive, especially considering Jokic is going to be back by the end of the month. It seems like he's already doing on-court workouts. So the fact that they've not just steadied the ship, I mean, they've outperformed anybody's expectations without Jokic has been impressive. And they're I think in lone place is the 2 seed right now. And now Jokic can come back. They're in a great spot.
I can't believe that number was what it was. But what is going to be your level of upsetness when the San Antonio Spurs whack this team in the second round?
I won't be upsetness. It'll just be shock. I would be shocked if this Spurs team
would win.
With this level of inexperience that they have from the young guys in the playoffs, if they beat the Nuggets in that second round, I would be shocked.
Rank these teams from a Denver Nuggets perspective of who you would not want to face. I want the Thunder, which I think is probably the obvious one here, the Spurs, and the Rockets in your 3.
Yeah, Thunder you would want to see the least. And then I'd rather see the Spurs than the Rockets. I think the Rockets have a ton of size, and the Nuggets don't lack size, but like that would be a tough rebounding battle when they throw Steven Adams and Alperen Sengun on those some lineups together, and then you have Clint Capella as an option. Like they just crash the boards. That would be a tough matchup on size and length for that Nuggets offense. But neither of those two teams, the Thunder or Rockets, would really scare me. Excuse me, the Spurs or Rockets would scare me.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how things do shake out at the Western Conference. I mean, I've repeated this take several times, but I do believe the top 4 teams in the NBA are all in the Western Conference currently. So we'll see how that does shake out. I do think the East is playing for second, but I am enjoying watching this this Nuggets team without Nikola Jokic a part of it. Shout out to Peyton Watson, man. I was not a believer. You know what he averaged per game in college?
8.
2.3 points per game at UCLA, Peyton Watson average right there. Then I was like, how in the world is this guy about to be a first-round pick? And he barely played. He was a very limited minutes type guy, but the dude's got it. I mean, this is unbelievable, the stretch that he's been on. We'll see how replicable this is and how true when the team returns to full form, but you can't argue with the results.
100%. All right, let's keep it moving and finish the show with what we've been teasing all day, which is our role player draft. It's really all role player teams. So you have the all NBA teams of the top players, but we're drafting our all role player team. And we had some discussion about how to really classify role players because obviously, if you've been if you're a star in the league, you're technically considered a star in the NBA if you've made an All NBA team or an All Star team in the last 3 years. So obviously, those guys are out of the picture. But then there's a lot of players like Jamal Murray and certain guys like that who don't qualify, but they're not role players. And then so Sean wanted to do if you play less than 25 minutes, but then I was like, there's guys who are absolute role players who still play a ton of minutes. So we each have a veto if we have some guys. I did it. This is how I did it. And maybe you did it differently. But if you're a top 3 on the team in scoring, you can't be a role player.
Okay.
And so like there was guys like OG Anunoby, Aaron Gordon, you might consider Mikal Bridges. You might consider role players technically, but they're above the threshold for me. So I didn't include any of them. So do you want the first pick?
I'll throw the hand behind my head. I'm holding a number 1 or 2. I'll ask you to pick right here what we got. And by the way, those names that you mentioned, way too good to be role players, in my opinion. Those would all get flags.
Yeah. 2.
It is 1.
All right.
The first pick. And I'm taking my floor general with the first overall pick in this role player draft right here. You know who I'm taking, Sam Oshtry? I'm taking with the first overall pick in our role player draft, Timothy John McConnell, to run the floor for our team. Okay. To make the case for TJ McConnell right here, so far this season for a pretty irrelevant Indiana Pacers team, he's playing 17.4 minutes per game, averaging 10 points, 4.9 assists, 2.3 rebounds, and 1.2 steals. Give the per 36 numbers, that comes out to 20.6 points, 10.2 assists, 4.8 rebounds, and 2.5 steals per game. The biggest knock on him is his unwillingness as a three-point shooter. He's still a 34.5% three-point shooter throughout his career. That I can live with that as a guy. But obviously, my take here is he's going to be the guy that runs the show for my team. I want TJ being the guy.
I like it. I'm not going to argue with TJ McConnell. He's a classic role player and just an all-around good locker room guy. Any team, like there's a reason someone his height, his size has lasted this long in the league, and it's because of all those non-basketball factors. But I'm going with the best role player in the league. And we talked about him earlier. We talked about the Knicks. It's Josh Hart. And that's why I kind of said, he plays 31 minutes a night, but that guy's the definition of a role player. He does all the dirty work. He's the heart and soul of that team. He's averaging 12.4 points per game this year, shooting around 40% from 3, which has been huge for this Knicks team when he plays, because you really can't help in on him anymore if he's making threes at that level. But then 7.8 rebounds per game and over 5 assists. He's been incredible, and he's the definition of a connector, of a role player, of a guy. Any team in the league, all 30 teams would love a Josh Hart. So he's my number 1 in all role player team.
Yeah, I can live with that. And I do think that is an example of a guy who plays more minutes but still fits the criteria there. So shout out to that. I don't think you're going to draft this guy, but I also can't live with not getting him. I'm taking Jordan Walsh with my second overall pick right here. Of the Boston Celtics, he's playing 19.5 minutes per game this year, averaging 6.3 points, 4.7 rebounds, 1.0 steals per game, shooting 44.3% from beyond the three-point arc. His per 36 numbers at his 6'6" size coming out to 11.6 points, 8.6 rebounds, and 1.8 steals per game. Beyond just all of that, he is on the top 5 defenders in the league, in my opinion. The way that he can swallow up an opponent on the perimeter right there is unreal. I've loved him since Arkansas. I watched a lot of his film because he was on the same team as Ricky Council in college, along with Anthony Black and Nick Smith Jr. Shout out to both those guys who ended up being first-round picks. But Jordan Walsh is joining my all-role player team.
I like it. He's been awesome this year. What a revelation for the Celtics. I'm going Colin Gillespie with my second pick.
Okay.
He's been incredible. And people talk about the Dylan Brooks rise and all this stuff. He's been as important as anybody for this Suns ascension into top 7 team in the West this year. Shocking Suns team. Averaging career high 13.2 points per game, 41% from 3, nearly 5 assists, 4.2 rebounds. He's just like, when Jay Wright was still coaching, it was you take a Villanova guard and you figure out the rest later. Because Jay Wright taught those guys, forget about as people, as men, as all that stuff, taught those guys how to be basketball players more than anybody coaching college. To play off 2 feet, he's so much Brunson to his game, where he plays off 2 feet, the pace he plays with, acceleration, deceleration, the angles. He's a good playmaker. He's a dog, and he's been incredible this year for them. And so he's technically a role player still. He's my number 2 pick.
Back-to-back Nova picks for you, Sam Oshtry.
They breed role players.
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised, and don't want to argue with either one of the picks right there. I'm going big man next, and I'm taking Beef Stew Isaiah Stewart as my next pick. Love this guy. playing 23.7 minutes per game, 10.4 points, 5.6 rebounds, 2.1 blocks per game. And by the way, way better three-point shooter than people give him credit. He's shooting 37.3% from deep this year on 2.4 perimeter attempts per game. To give the per 36 stats, that comes out to 15.9 points, 8.6 rebounds, and 3.1 blocks per game. Give me him as the toughness, the in the middle beef stew I'm riding with.
Yeah, I mean, one of the guys in the NBA you'd least want to get in a fight with.
Sure.
And he's like not, and I think people used to think of him as just like some fighter, super physical enforcer type. He is talent. Like when Jalen Duran's missed some time, which he has this year, he's been stepped in that role perfectly. All right, I'm going to go with Keldon Johnson. 13.6 points, 6 rebounds, career high 41% three-point shooting, which is way up from last year, 33%. 56% from the field, so he's really efficient from 2 too. Hasn't started a single game this year. Should be. You're not Xing that. Come on.
I'm giving it some thought. I'm giving it some thought.
He's the definition of role player. He comes off the bench. He should be the 6th man of the year. And we're talking about a team where it's Wemby, it's Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox, even Dylan Harper. He's a guy who's played the 3-and-D role.
I'm throwing it.
Why?
Because this was a guy that was this is the Keldon Johnson career arc to me is I don't want to say that he's been on the disappointing. Like this dude started all 63 games 3 years ago. He's averaged 22 points per game.
Credit to the Spurs for holding on to him. He was in so many trade discussions, but they held on to him because they thought he would make a bigger leap, but he hasn't. And what he is now is a role player. That's indisputable. You can't say, oh, because he was gonna be a star or supposed to be a star. He's a role player. He's coming off the bench. His minutes, his touches, usage, all align with a role player. He's a 3-and-D guy, and he's been incredible as a floor spacer, and he's a great defender, constantly taking on tough defensive assignments. There's no way to say he's anything above a role player for this Spurs team. I was going to take Harrison Barnes, but Keldon Johnson's having a better year. You would have rather Harrison Barnes?
That's more of a role player than Keldon Johnson to me.
I don't know.
And I get he starts.
Harrison Barnes starts
and plays more minutes, but like Keldon Johnson, I'll allow it. I'll give it to you there. That is a guy that I think about. Like I looked at him in my list as I was crunching my numbers right here, and I thought too highly of him. That was a guy that I thought did not quite make the list. I'll give it to you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, that threw me off a little. So I got TJ McConnell, Jordan Walsh, and Isaiah Stewart on my team. I think I'm going double big with my roster right here.
Big team.
I am. I'm taking Jay Huff as my guy.
Oh, I love Jay Huff.
Absolutely love Jay Huff. I think it's awesome. He's getting some shine with the Pacers. I got 2 Pacers on my team. So I got TJ McConnell and Jay Huff as the guy. What frustrates me about Jay Huff specifically is he's been doing this forever. Like he's been shooting threes since his time at Virginia. To just lay out his stats that he started 22 of 41 games for the Pacers, playing 19.9 minutes per game, averaging 8.4 points, 3.7 rebounds, and 1.3 assists, only shooting 31.1% from 3 this year on 4.4 attempts, but he did shoot over 40% from 3 last year with Memphis. The per 36 numbers come out to 15.2 points, 6.7 rebounds, 2.4 assists, and perhaps the point that I have not harped on enough, the shot blocking, man. 3.9 block shots per 36 minutes, 2.1 blocks per game against 19.9. Good luck scoring on my squad with Jay Huff and Isaiah Stewart inside.
Yeah, I like that. I was between 2 bigs, and Jay Huff was one of them. I went with the other one, so I'm not going to take him now. I'll save him for the last pick. But with my 4th guy, I got Colin Gillespie, Josh Hart, Keldon Johnson, AJ Mitchell. Okay. And he was getting a lot more buzz at the start of the year when Jalen Williams was out. So his numbers have dipped a little bit, but he's still the 4th leading scorer on that Thunder team. And he was incredible to start the year. Really, when Shea sat, he manned a lot of those lineups and the ball handling duties. 14 points per game, 13.6 assists. The 3-point shooting isn't great. It could get better, but he's only in his 2nd year, and he's a role player right now. But I think the ceiling for him is a real star. And so AJ Mitchell's on my list.
I'm stuck now. So I like AJ Mitchell a lot. By the way, that's a guy who I think fast forward 2-3 years from now and is far out of the role player conversations. That I do think this guy will have his breakout. But I agree with you right now that is the class that he finds himself in. So my team is TJ McConnell, Jordan Walsh, Jay Huff, and Isaiah Stewart. I do think this team needs a little juice. I think we need a little spunkiness, a little creation ability. I'm taking Caleb Love as my final pick to be my starting 2. I love Caleb Love, man. Loved him since UNC. He doesn't play a ton for the Trailblazers. I'm still a believer in him as a talent. He will get in your face. He will cross you up. He will take some idiotic shots. He's playing 21.5 minutes per game for Portland, averaging 10.8 points, 2.7 rebounds, 2.4 assists per game. The efficiency numbers are not great, but he does have some creation ability. The per 36 numbers come out to 18.2 points, 4.6 rebounds, 4.1 assists per game. I can live with it. I have the infrastructure to take a Caleb Love. That's what's finishing my squad.
Yeah, that's a deep cup one. I like it. I like it a lot. All right, to round out my squad, the big, I got Colin Gillespie, Josh Hart, Kellen Johnson, AJ Mitchell. I'm going Khalil Ware. And I think this
flag. First round pick last year. He's not a role player.
But he's a role player for this team.
Yeah, but no, that's too good. Like that, I took Jay Huff was an undrafted guy.
All right, so then does Naz Reid qualify?
I think that's the dude won sixth man of the year last year.
A game, and you were saying around 25 is the threshold.
He won sixth man of the year last year.
All right, you know what? Forget it then. You want me to have a big because you drafted two bigs. You just want to kill my team on the glass. You don't want me to have a big. Let's just the record show that Khalil Ware is
not a role player.
Averaging a double-double, shooting almost 3 threes per game, and doing it shooting 3 threes per game and shooting 42% from 3. I also will say I don't love the him and Bam lineups together. Bam has just been awful offensively, and it kind of messes up. They just don't work well together based on their roles and their archetypes as players. But defensively, they're pretty elite. So I really like Khalil Ware. I think in a better situation, his ceiling is really high.
To be clear here, my argument is not that he's bad. My argument is that he's too good to be on this list.
No, I know. I fully understand. I still think he's a role player for now, though. All right, I won't have a big then. You know what? After last night's performance, give me Bryce Sensible. Incredible last night. 43 points. That guy's just an absolute. I don't know if you would ever build a team around him, but for a bench scorer, a microwave scorer, he can come in off the bench and just give you buckets. And he's been good this year, but he'll have nights like last night where he's just hooping.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Do you want a 6-man on this team? Do you have more on your list here? I would like.
You used all my guys.
I used all your guys. All right. Well, I'll just rattle off. Can I rattle off the rest? I had 15 guys that I crunched the numbers. Jeez. That made sense to me. So I took TJ McConnell. Nemias Queta made my list. I ended up going with Beef Stew there. Dominic Barlow made my list as a guy that I thought was winner. And Luke Cornett and Sandru Mamushvili, or whatever you say his name. Those were my big man options that I had for myself. Also had Jamal Shed. If I didn't get TJ, who would have been my guy that runs it. Isaiah Joe, I wanted on this team, man. I'm bummed out that I did not draft him. Ochai Agbaji, Hugo Gonzalez, and Vit Krishek is, I think, how you say his name. Yeah. I was pretty close to drafting him too. So those were the guys that I was. And Nick Clifford was the last one that I did have there.
I like him a lot. I liked him coming out of the draft.
Me too.
Luke Cornett's a great one. He's the most classic, great backup big. But like backup big isn't even a role player. It's more just like a bench player. But
you know what I was shocked to find running the numbers right here? You know, Luke Cornett has not attempted a 3-pointer this year.
Really?
That shocked me as well.
That is surprising. Yeah, he's a great player though. I like the list, but I like my team too.
I'm throwing this out on a poll on social.
Yeah, do it. But if when you do it, give me Khalil Ware, all right?
No.
Okay, fine. Say that, then make sure the poll is just the top 5 guys. Because if it's a head-to-head matchup, I don't have a big.
Yeah, but I think you're gonna win this poll because like Josh, people love Josh Hart more than people love Caleb Love. Like people are gonna gravitate.
All right, fine. Throw out the poll. You language the poll however you want. I got confidence in my squad. All right, everybody. We appreciate you listening as always. Pace and Space Podcast. We will be back next Tuesday. We'll have a lot to talk about. I'm sure some other news will pop up. We'll maybe catch up on the Sixers and Cavs game from this Friday night, but there'll be other games since then. So we're keeping on chugging until the trade deadline, which will be some crazy weeks, especially on this podcast. So keep it locked on Pace and Space. For Sean Barnard, I'm Sam Oshtry. We'll talk to you next week.